The jet bridge door hissed shut behind the last few passengers as the cabin lights glowed warm and golden, reflecting off sleek leather seats that made the aircraft feel more like a private lounge than a commercial cabin. In seat 2A sat a woman in her mid-40s, quiet, composed, wearing a simple navy blazer and reading over a stack of documents with the calm focus of someone who lived in perpetual responsibility. No jewelry, no visible brand names, nothing flashy, just presence. But the man settling into 2B, loud, restless, and dripping annoyance, noticed none of that. He threw his suitcase overhead with a grunt, huffed loudly, and looked over at the woman with a smirk. "These corporate flights always cram in random people," he muttered, not quietly enough. She didn't respond. She simply offered a polite nod and returned to her papers. He chuckled, misinterpreting silence as insecurity. "Let me guess, first time in executive elite?" She lifted her eyes. "No," she said gently. "I fly this route often." "Right, and I'm the King of England." Passengers nearby exchanged glances, sensing tension forming like clouds before a storm. The man leaned over, lowering his voice but sharpening his tone. "You know these seats cost more than most people make in a month, right?" She closed her folder, now studying him in a way that was neither offended nor intimidated, just patient. "I'm aware." That only fueled him. "So what are you then? Admin staff? Middle management? Secretary?" She breathed softly, as if deciding whether to ignore him or put the fire out before it spread. But he pressed on, eyes narrowing as if trying to peel labels off her like stickers. "Let me guess, your boss is in the back and you beg to sit up here? These seats are for executives, not whatever you are." A sharp hook pierced the air. Passengers stiffened, watching for the woman's reaction. But instead of anger, she offered a light, almost sympathetic smile. "You assume a lot." "Because I know the type, people who pretend they belong." She folded her documents neatly into her bag. "I do belong," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight, an undercurrent of power he was too blind to detect. The man scoffed again, clinging to his ego. "Oh, please, you don't own the place. You're not running anything." A silence heavier than pressure at 35,000 feet fell between them as she turned and looked him directly in the eyes. "Sir," she said calmly, "I own the plane and the company that operates this route." Gasps rippled across the cabin, but the man burst into a laugh so loud that it made the attendant jump. "You own this plane? That's the biggest lie I've ever heard." But even as he laughed, the engines hummed, the doors sealed, and the real truth waited like a storm ready to break. As the plane taxied, the man leaned back smugly, clearly convinced he'd exposed her as a fraud. He whispered to another passenger, "She's delusional. Probably read one self-help book and now thinks she's a billionaire." The whispers, the looks, the uncomfortable shifting, they all swirled around Ms. Rowe like cold wind, but she remained still, almost serene. When the plane reached cruising altitude, the pilot's voice cracked over the intercom. "Good evening, folks. This is Captain Lorne. Tonight's flight should be smooth, and before we begin our route, I'd like to give a special thanks to someone on board. Our aircraft owner and the visionary leader of the company that built our entire fleet is traveling with us tonight. Ms. Helena Rowe, thank you for your trust in our crew." The cabin went silent. Every single passenger turned. The man's face drained of color, slowly, painfully, like someone unplugged from arrogance intravenously. And then, because humiliation wasn't finished with him, the pilot stepped out of the cockpit. Personally, he walked straight down the aisle to 2A. "Ms. Rowe," he said warmly, "the new diagnostics you implemented worked flawlessly. This jet is running smoother than any test we've flown." She nodded appreciatively. Good to hear. I'll review the tech reports when we land. The man shrank in his seat. The captain turned to him. You must be Mr. Halden, he said, after glancing at the seating chart. Halden swallowed. Yes. Ah, finance sector, right? Correct. Ms. Rowe sits on the board of the aviation regulatory group that approved the merger your firm is trying to push. Halden almost choked. The pilot's voice tightened. So I'd advise showing her the respect she deserves, not just because she owns this aircraft, but because she's one of the most influential CEOs in modern aviation. Passengers murmured. A woman whispered, He messed with her? A man added, He just blew up his career. Halden opened his mouth to apologize, but something else happened first. The plane jolted, hard. Oxygen masks rattled. A few passengers yelped. The screens blinked. The captain's face changed instantly. Everyone stay calm. He rushed back to the cockpit. Ms. Rowe stood, not panicked, but alert. She strode toward the front with a calmness that made people instinctively trust her. Moments later, the pilot called out from the cockpit, Helena, I need your eyes on this. Halden stared, bewildered. Through the crack in the door, he saw her step into the cockpit with the authority of someone who had built the very technology humming around them. The turbulence worsened. Panels flickered. The co-pilot muttered, Engine sync anomaly. This doesn't make sense. Helena leaned over the instruments. It's the new flight automation update. Roll it back to manual assist, reset the calibrator, and override the power distribution. You invented this, the co-pilot said. I designed every circuit. Passengers watched, breath held, as the danger mounted. But Helena worked like someone with no fear, no hesitation, only mastery. A few commands, a few decisive switches, and the plane leveled. The cabin erupted into relieved applause as she exited the cockpit. She didn't bow, didn't boast, didn't even smile. She just returned to seat 2A and reopened her folder like nothing happened. Meanwhile, Halden trembled, realizing he'd almost picked a fight with the woman who just saved every life on board. When the plane landed, emergency vehicles waited, not because the plane was in danger anymore, but because protocol required an escort after a near-systems failure. Passengers filed out slowly, many stopping beside Helena with heartfelt thanks. Some shook her hand, some bowed slightly, some just whispered, "Thank you for saving us." She accepted each gesture with the grace of someone used to leading without needing acknowledgement. But Halden, he stood frozen in the aisle, trapped between humiliation and guilt. When it was finally his turn to exit, he paused beside her. "Miss Rowe, I didn't know. I'm so sorry." She looked at him, not unkindly. "The problem isn't that you didn't know who I was," she said softly. "The problem was that you assumed you already did." His throat tightened. She continued, "Power is quiet. Leadership doesn't need to announce itself. And the people who truly belong in a room never feel the need to prove it." He swallowed hard. "You're right. I was out of line." She nodded. Growth starts with recognizing the bias that makes you see someone as less because they don't fit your expectations. He lowered his eyes, humbled beyond repair. "I'll remember that." She stood, gathering her things. "Good, because next time you might not just offend someone who owns the plane." She paused, glancing toward the cockpit crews who were still thanking her. "You might offend someone who keeps it in the air." With that, she stepped off, greeted warmly by airport officials. Halden followed behind, shrinking into the background, as the woman he dismissed as just another employee walked off as the literal owner of the sky. If this story made you pause, if it made you rethink the way people judge others so quickly, so unfairly, so blindly, then don't let it end when the video stops. Stories like this shine a spotlight on a hard truth we often ignore. Too many people assume worth based on appearance, status, clothing, race, or silence, instead of character, capability, and humanity. And the only way these lessons spread is when you help amplify them. So I want to hear from you right now. Which moment hit you the hardest? Was it when he mocked her? When the pilot thanked her? When she stepped into the cockpit and saved the entire aircraft? Or was it the moment he realized he had judged someone infinitely greater than he'd ever imagined? Your comment could be the message someone else needs today, a reminder to look deeper before assuming someone's story. If you believe people deserve respect, regardless of what they look like, if you believe judgment and prejudice still show up in small, subtle, dangerous ways, if you believe humility, empathy, and humanity matter, then please share this video. One share could spark a mindset shift in someone who desperately needs it. And if you want more stories like this, stories that expose injustice, challenge assumptions, and highlight the strength and dignity of people underestimated every day, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're building a movement here, a community fueled by awareness, empathy, and truth. Hit like, leave your comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Let's keep changing the way people see each other, one story at a time.